So ratings. Impact does like a 0.8 to 1.0 every week. It's usually a 0.9.
Fine numbers.
Every week, PW Torch breathlessly report the 0.9 that they did, and are like, it's not going up, it's not going down, it's staying the same. They're not keeping UFC's lead in. How dare they not keep UFC's lead in, because they had not understood at this point that the crossover between wrestling and MMA is actually quite small. It seems intuitive that it should be larger, but like time has shown us it's actually not that big. Like, you're not going to turn MMA fans into wrestling fans, and you're not going to turn wrestling fans into MMA fans. There is crossover, but usually the people that like one don't just go to the other by default.
No, the people that like one normally just like have a casual relationship with the other, if anything. Or you're just someone who is like into both.
It is funny to see like Endeavor are now trying to do it again with the UFC and WWE,
because they own both. They can't. It's very advantageous for them to try.
But will they be the ones to finally crack the code? I don't think so, because as I said, I don't think the crossover is that big.
See, I think they might, just because WWE is so far from wrestling now. Like, WWE is post-wrestling. It is like its own like weird hyper-specific entity that I could see people being like, oh yeah, I'm here for the UFC, but I'll buy a fucking ticket to whatever shows on the Sunday. You know what I mean? Like, it's so Disney of it all that I could just see people being like, I'll go to the show. So I think they have a stronger chance than ever of actual crossover, because it's post wrestling. That's the only way I can describe it as. It's not wrestling. It's its own weird entity.
Yeah, it's John Pollock.
Yeah, it's post wrestling. It's John Pollock.
So like, I don't know. Like, I read these and I didn't include any of the details because it's just annoying me. I just read them and they're like, oh, you know, they did the sky is falling. They did a 0.8 this week. They do a 1.0 the next week. It's fine. And like, there's a story in the Observer regarding the TNA ratings. The indication internally at TNA is that Spike is happy with the numbers, which is all that fucking matters. Why are these people going crazy?
How is this like still the same talking point 20 years later?
Spike was projecting selling ads at a 0.8 rating, and the lowest they've gotten so far is 0.84. So everything above that's gravy for Spike. They said when we sold this to advertisers, 0.8, every week has done better than that. So it has exceeded expectations in the time slot for what Spike has sold it as. And like the numbers internally are hugely disappointing. Dave like literally calls it a failure this month. He uses the word failure. It's like TNA's failure to get an audience on Spike. It's like, what are you talking about? And like, part of it is like he's making a direct comparison to the UFC, which is like, it makes sense to do here in 2005 because they're both on Spike. They're neither are particularly large entities, but the idea that like you're comparing TNA to what, like, we know what UFC becomes and we know what TNA becomes, and the gap between those things is fucking humongous. So the idea that like they are actually, you know, comparing those two, it's like TNA aren't doing UFC numbers. It's a disaster. And I'm just like, ugh. Liam is currently underlining all of the talking points you see over and over and over again. Because Dave is like, there is no way to positively spin the downward trending quarter hours, which is the way every quarter hour is now in wrestling, by the way.
My favorite thing is the four things I've underlined, which are Spike is happy, then the numbers are hugely disappointing, followed by there is no way to positively spin the downward trending quarter hours, followed by there are more eyeballs seeing the product than ever before.
Like, Dave wrote this paragraph. Because as he said, TNA is well ahead of where it was, but there wasn't the defining moment in turning the company's fortunes around. The Saturday replays are well ahead of the former Monday replays, and the Thursday shows are even ahead of Saturday. So as you said, there are more eyeballs seeing TNA than ever in TNA's existence, but this is a disaster. It's a failure. The company needs to change, and I'm losing my mind. It's driving me crazy reading this, Liam. It's literally driving me crazy to see this is what we've done to AEW, and I've probably been guilty of it too. Like, the same old bullshit talking points. None of it matters. And I get we need to fill column inches or whatever. Dave has the right shit in the Observer, and Wade has the right shit in the Torch. Fucking
anytime you read one of those fucking things and you're like, 40% of this is boring ratings talk that doesn't matter and no one gives a shit about.
Yeah, like there is endless paragraphs about this in both the Torch and the Observer, hitting this over and over and over and over again.
How are they not sick about writing of this? It's been longer than that because they were doing it during the fucking 90s too.
It's really frustrating. It is the most frustrating thing about this podcast for me so far is this. Like, reading this stuff and seeing, like, it's just the same shit we do now. And, like, the AEW, for all their faults, I think we probably talked them into a depression.
Yeah, well, yeah. Like, listen, part of the reason AEW, like, has the perception it has now is just because the way people have talked about it.
And, like, part of, like, they had their real creative low last year.
Yeah. Which was, like, you know, broadly agreed upon by haters and fans alike. Actually, the haters started pretending they liked it, which was the funniest bit.
I think part of the reason we saw that was, like, this shit. Like, we talked them into them feeling like they had to change. And then they did change, and we were like...
And everyone's like, no, this sucks.
And instead of just being like, they're doing fine. It's okay to be a really healthy number 2. That's really okay.
That's the problem, is because, like, there's a perception. Like, well, it's the WCW, WWF of it all. Like, the idea that you have to be number 1 to be successful.
We can't get away from it. We really haven't escaped the Monday Night Wars in any capacity. In the way we talk about wrestling, in the way, like, everything we think about, we compare it to WCW still. Everything is WCW. Everything good is WCW. Everything bad is WCW. Like, we have not escaped this. It's honestly the same stuff we saw with the Luger, Bagwell, and Buff stuff earlier. It's like, everyone's like, this is WCW. We haven't gotten away from that. As an industry, we just haven't broken out of those thinking patterns.
Despite the fact that, like, there is a large percentage of pro wrestling fans that weren't alive.
Like, most people who watch WWE TV now haven't watched a wrestling show earlier than, even conservatively, 2013.
Yeah.
Most of them are probably a little bit later.
Yeah.
Like the majority of wrestling fans now are Shield era fans. That's the era we're in. If you want to actually define this era of WWE, it's the Shield era. Those are who the fans are. Like, they're Roman guys, they're Seth guys, and there used to be Dean guys. But
and then they burnt the jersey.
Until he comes back and he'll be great again, because they're dopes. But, like, that is where we are. Most of these people, like, for them, TNA is not relevant. Like, TNA had a year or 2 on Spike before these fans, like, fell onto Pop and Destination America and Access and Pursuit and fell out of view. Like, that's where we are now, where, like, TNA is, like, this abstract thought. Like, the idea of this era of TNA is nearly 20 years ago. So, like, these people don't even know this stuff. Never mind WCW. And we're still stuck in Heyman and Bischoff and Vince and the Monday Night Wars and WCW and ECW and WWE, because we have not evolved as an industry in both how we talk about it and how we compare things and what we're striving toward. It's just really annoying reading all of this. And I don't include any of it in the show notes because it annoys me too much.
Well, we got it all out of our system now.
Until I read it again next month.
Yes, when TNA is dying again.
And then Russo comes back, and then it's all over. And then, as I said, they did that. They didn't want Russo. Russo wouldn't have been the guy they picked. But that's your bad. She chose Russo.
And I think it's the right decision. And I will be proven correct. To be fair, this Russo return isn't the one that fucks him forever.
Yes, there is another one that is worse. Fucking dumb company.
That's the one that, like, kills it.